Yeah, good morning. It's Memorial Day morning in 2019. Yeah, I'm Alan Brummel. I served in the 1st and 40th Artillery in Vietnam from 1966-67, and I was a radio repairman in headquarters company. Yeah, see, well, the thing is, when I went to basic training, I went through my basic training and with a bunch of guys from the area. But then we got um, as we went through there, you you I went in as a drafted farm kid at 19 years old, and we as we started basic training, I was very nervous about it, but it turned out that I was in good physical shape, so I could keep up with the best of them. It wasn't that hard for me as it was for a lot of people. But anyway, we had to go through uh, through taking aptitude tests and stuff like that. And well, after you do that, then they sit you down with some uh, career counselor, so to speak, which was really kind of a joke. But anyway, they would say, "Well, what do you want to do when you get in the Army?" Well, of course, I never thought about anything I wanted to do. I mean, I didn't even know I had a choice, and I knew from experience that it really didn't make any difference what you said. They're gonna put you where they want to anyway. And so I I says, "Well, I don't know. I never thought about it." Well, the guy said, "Well, let's look at your tests a minute." And or what did you do before you got in the Army? I said, "Well, I helped my brother test milk." He says, "Well, would you like to be a milk truck driver?" No, not really. Um, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. I didn't know it was up to me to choose. Well, he said, look through your test. Looks like you're in your aptitude test. You scored high in electronics. I'll put you down for that. And I never gave that another thought. We went through our basic training, and during my basic training, I ended up getting really sick. I ended up with pneumonia, and I had to go to the hospital. And I didn't want to go in the worst way, because if you get out of if you lose some time in basic training, you got to restart and go all through it again, and that would just be unthinkable to me. I didn't want to do that. There were kids that had to do that, and that was awful, because you were with your group, and you wanted to stay with them. Anyway, my sergeant took pity on me, and he gave me, for a final test, he gave me a ride to the test site instead of having to run there all the way out there like the rest of them. And I went through it, and it went very well. I did okay. I was better, pretty much better by that time, and as a result, I did okay, and as a result, I also got a Recruit of the Year award for actually doing well in the face of adversity, and my parents got a letter of honoring me in that. And but anyway, after that, when basic training was over, I I had to. They put up on the bulletin board. They put up the lists of where you had to go for your advanced training. It would just be your name and a number behind it. And all of my buddies, they all had the number that was to go to infantry or MPs or things like that, and mine, nobody knew what the number was. And so I asked my sergeant. I said, "Well, where?" I was devastated, of course, because I wanted to go along with the rest of my friends where they were going. So, but that wasn't going to happen. They this sergeant looked at it, and he said, "Well, I don't know what that number is either." He said, so we took it to the commanding officer, and he didn't know, so he got his book out and looked it up, and he says, "Well, you're going to radio school in Fort Sill, Oklahoma." Well, so I was the only one that ended up going to radio school. I went there, and it was just like, pretty much like going to a college class or whatever. We went to classroom work during the day. I didn't have to do any guard duty or shooting or running or anything like that. We just had to take classes on electronics and whatnot. Anyway, it went okay. I mean, I was no genius, but I was able to keep up with the best of them at that. I I realized that I really had never studied in my life, and now all of a sudden it was a matter of either study or get sent to the infantry. And by that point, I realized I had a good thing going, and I didn't really want to go into the infantry anymore. So I I, uh, I studied hard and did okay, and then my there at that time the First and 40th Artillery was being reactivated. It had been activated during World War II in Korea and then deactivated afterwards. And it was being activated at that time to, to for the specific purpose of going up to the DMZ in Vietnam, where the Marine Corps was getting beat up pretty bad, and the only cover or the only support that they could get was from air support from Cambodia or Thailand. So once we got trained and all our equipment ready, we were loaded in trains and shipped to the west coast, where we got on board ship and headed across. And on the way we stopped at Okinawa for a couple of days, which was kind of a neat break and our first taste of seeing the Asian culture. And on to Vietnam. Well, it was quite the dramatic landing there. For some reason, the equipment could be landed at a dock and loaded off, but in our troop ship, we got put into landing craft, just like in World War II, where you come by close by shore, and the door flipped down, and you had to jump off into water up to your chest, carrying your probably a 75-pound pack with their rifle. Had to wade onto the beach, and then we had to set up tents on the beach for a couple days while our equipment all got rigged up. While we were there, we had something like 12 inches of rain inside of a couple hours, and all of our tents got flooded. And our cots, I had my rifle down in the bottom part of my cot in the cross beams of it, and I didn't realize it at first, and that got completely covered with water. We're sleeping on top of our cots and on top of our rucksacks on top of the cot. We're trying to sleep on top of that because you had to keep that dry. It was it was quite a nightmare our first couple of days in Vietnam. Well, then once I realized my rifle was under the water there, I had to pull it out and get that. I'll sit up on top of that and strip it down and get that cleaned and oiled right away. But it was pretty safe there at Da Nang at that time yet, because that was a pretty well protected area. Well, then once we got our equipment all together, we got loaded up back into our jeeps and tanks and trucks, and we headed across the country in a convoy up to Dong Ha, which is about 4 or 5 miles maybe from the DMZ. And then we set up near the town put up a ring of concertina wire and quickly did that right off the bat, and set up our tents and got settled in. And we were pretty much under attack right away from the get-go, because the Viet Cong didn't want us there. They had really good intelligence on it, and they knew we were coming, and so they were prepared for it. But the Marine Corps also, by the way, we were the only army that far north in Vietnam. There was no army up there, so we got put under Marine Corps command. But the Marines, they did their best protecting us, and that was something that, even though by us being there with our artillery now, where we could, they could call in support out, to 12 to 15 miles and closer. We saved a lot of Marine Corps lives, but by the same token, they protected us, and they lost a lot of lives protecting our perimeter from the Viet Cong, who were really determined that they didn't want us there. A matter of fact, Hanoi Hannah from the radio station in Hanoi, which we weren't that far from, but we could pick him up on our radio, and she spoke perfect English, and she kept reporting that the First and 40th was going to be wiped out shortly, because they were gonna come around and clean up on us. Well, it was mostly propaganda, of course, but there we were under attack quite a bit.